They really hate each other now, and they cannot hide it anymore.
She was the villain.
How was she dangerous?
Because of the need for her to rehabilitate her image.
What was meant to look like another royal love story on camera ended up feeling tense, cold, and strangely off. The cameras were waiting for sparkle, smiles, and one more polished Sussex moment. But when Prince Harry stepped out of that black SUV in New York, the mood changed fast. His face looked tight, his jaw seemed locked, and his shoulders carried that stiff energy of a man trying hard not to react under the glare of flashbulbs. For Meghan, the red carpet seemed like business as usual. Her smile came on bright and practiced, like a spotlight hitting its mark. She looked polished, camera-ready, and fully prepared to give the photographers what they wanted. But Harry did not match her rhythm. He looked distant, tense, and almost checked out. The gap between them was instant. They were standing close enough for the pictures, but emotionally, it looked like they were miles apart. You could feel it through the screen. One wrong question, one wrong look, and the whole scene felt ready to crack in public. Then came the shout. A voice from the crowd cut through the noise and yelled, "Stop using our children!" And just like that, the polished mood snapped. The smile froze. The cameras kept rolling. The fairy tale image started looking more like a pressure cooker. Harry's head turned sharply toward the sound, and for a split second, anger seemed to flash across his face. Then he turned away, reached for Meghan's arm, and moved with urgency. It did not look soft or romantic. It looked tense, rushed, and loaded with panic, like someone trying to get out before the moment turned uglier. His lips moved, but nobody could hear what he said. The flashbulbs kept firing.
I know my latest money-making scheme is going to be cosplaying the final night that Princess Diana died. He just doesn't seem to give a damn. Body language. My God, no amount of PR spin is going to deal with that. The simmering tension between the duplicitous Duke and his facelift-enhanced wife. Here's the red carpet arrival.
Hey, Harry, when are you going upstairs?
Reporters kept calling their names, but the tension was the loudest thing in the room. Those were not easy smiles from a couple enjoying the spotlight. They were survival smiles, the kind people wear when the story is slipping, but the cameras are still locked on. From that moment, nothing about the night felt fully natural. The prince who once challenged the palace to stand by Meghan now looked like a man protecting himself. From the cameras, from the pressure, from the whispers, and maybe from whatever had already happened behind closed doors. They walked the red carpet together, but every step seemed to widen the invisible distance between them. To casual viewers, it was glamour. To insiders, it looked like a silent war wrapped in designer clothes, and under every flash of light, one question kept hanging over the night. What happened between Harry and Meghan that turned devotion into resentment and a fairy tale into a fight? New York City was buzzing with sirens, camera shutters, and massive expectations. This was supposed to be their redemption moment. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex were meant to reclaim the spotlight after months of silence, criticism, and rumours. The venue glowed in golden light, styled like a symbol of rebirth. But beneath that shine, witnesses claimed the energy was wrong from the start. Event staff reportedly whispered about a tense exchange inside the SUV just moments before arrival. One member of the security detail allegedly described Harry's face as ice cold. According to that account, Meghan sat rigid, adjusting her earrings in the reflection of the window.
Maybe he is still very upset over her stunt over in Paris. I can't imagine that didn't go unnoticed by him.
See her face. You get him, mate. But on stage, when they knew everyone was filming on their mobile phones and taking pictures, it got even worse.
They would tell you it's for protecting children online, but then why is Meghan Markle at a Balenciaga show accused of predatory behavior in the form of children's images?
Not looking at him once. By the time the door opened, every lens in Manhattan was pointed straight at them. Producers from the award ceremony had reportedly prepared the perfect entrance shot. One slow walk, one synchronized smile, one clean image of unity. But people near the carpet noticed something off almost immediately. Harry broke formation. He moved slightly ahead of Meghan, his stride faster, his gaze fixed on the carpet instead of the crowd. It was subtle, but it spoke loudly. It looked less like confidence and more like impatience, less like unity and more like distance. And this was not the first time tension had slipped through the glossy image. Weeks earlier, at a private industry dinner, Meghan was reportedly seen trying to hold Harry's hand. According to one witness, he brushed it away under the table and murmured something short. That witness described it as the moment the warmth left the room. In royal circles, tiny gestures can hit hard. A hand pulled away, a cold stare, a quick step forward. These little moves become major when a couple's whole public brand is built on loyalty, love, and standing together against the world.
Have you ever seen that video?
No.
Pull that video up.
Harry's speech was so lackluster, Tash. As you say, I think he's furious about what went on in Paris, but they couldn't cancel this event. What?
PR analysts and body language watchers started pointing to the same thing. Something had cracked long before that night in New York. What happened at the award gala did not feel like one random, awkward moment. It looked like the public reveal of private strain. Some blamed fame, others blamed palace pressure. Some pointed to brand deals, public image, and the stress of always trying to control the narrative. But one source close to Harry reportedly insisted the real breaking point was not in America at all. It began in Paris. At first glance, the night still looked like a win. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex stepped onto the red carpet, polished, expensive, and camera-ready. For weeks, tabloids had teased this appearance as their grand return, the moment they would rewrite the story and take back control. Every detail looked choreographed. The wardrobe, the walk, the smiles. Meghan shimmered in metallic gold. Every movement deliberate, every glance aimed at the lens. She knew where the cameras were. She knew when to turn. She knew how to sell the moment. Harry, in a classic tuxedo, followed her lead toward the fans behind the barricades. On the surface, it looked like resilience. The exiled royals turned global icons, the couple who had survived the palace, the press, and the backlash. But the illusion barely lasted. When the first wave of flashes hit, the tension became visible, even to people watching through live streams. Harry's expression did not match hers. Meghan was smiling. Harry was enduring. That difference was hard to ignore.
Our children, Archie and Lily, are just 6 and 4 years old. Luckily, still too young for social media, but we know that day is coming.
Now, Meghan, the actress, of course, had to stick to the script. And so we had the hilarious, she's trying to talk about the need to protect children from social media, even though she's pimping out her own children wherever she can, causing these tensions.
A small exhale seemed to escape him as Meghan waved toward the crowd. His face carried a flicker of strain that no amount of media training could fully hide. He did not look present. He looked trapped inside the performance. Then, amid the frenzy, that same voice cut through again. "Stop using our children." The words landed hard. For a second, the whole scene seemed to freeze. Cameras caught the reaction. Meghan's smile tightened. Harry's jaw clenched. His eyes darted toward the heckler before shifting quickly toward the entrance doors. It did not look like shock. It looked like recognition, as if the words had touched a private argument already happening behind closed doors. That is what made the moment feel explosive. It was not just a random heckle. It sounded like a line from a fight the public was never supposed to hear. Then came the gesture. Harry reached for Meghan's arm, not with affection, but urgency. The cameras may have read it as guidance, but according to a nearby photographer, it looked more like a signal. Move now. Keep going. Do not stop. The warmth was gone, replaced by a silent command. From that moment on, the night moved in a quiet spiral. They still played their roles. They posed. They laughed. They accepted applause. They gave the cameras what they came for. But the connection between them looked gone to everyone paying attention. It was glamour to casual viewers, but to those watching closely, it looked like grief disguised as grace. What the public hailed as a comeback may have actually been the first act of their unravelling. The topic of their children has become one of the most sensitive parts of the Sussex story. Every mention of family privacy brings intense reaction. Some critics argue that private family matters have been pulled too deeply into public narratives. Supporters say the couple has every right to tell their side, but on that red carpet, the shout dragged that private debate straight into the open. On the surface, the appearance looked flawless, but the replay told another story. Every frame of that New York moment was slowed down, magnified, and dissected. The distance was not just measured in steps, it was written in gestures. Harry's hand hung loosely by his side, fingers twitching. Each time Meghan leaned toward the cameras, she kept smiling. He blinked hard once, like a man trying to steady himself before the mask slipped too far. Body language specialists who reviewed the footage did not hold back. One expert called Harry's demeanour defensive withdrawal, the posture of someone shutting down emotionally under pressure. Another noted how Meghan's laughter seemed to arrive seconds late, like a delayed performance. It was coordination without connection. And this pattern was not new. Just weeks earlier, at a charity event hosted by Kevin Costner, Harry's irritation had reportedly been visible even off stage. When Meghan tried to guide the conversation, his jaw flexed, his gaze turned distant. The same look surfaced again in New York, only sharper, colder, and harder to explain away. By then, the whispers were getting louder. A stylist who reportedly worked with Meghan that night claimed the fitting session ended abruptly after an argument over her outfit. A publicist later recalled hearing Meghan's voice echo down a hallway, sharp and clipped, followed by the sound of a door slamming, with no shouting from Harry. There was no shouting from Harry, just the kind of silence insiders say had become his new pattern. He did not argue the way people expected. He did not fire back. He withdrew. And during that red carpet moment, social media spotted the fracture almost instantly. Side-by-side comparisons showed Harry leaning away, his expression flat and heavy, while Meghan leaned in with that polished closeness made for cameras. Photo agencies tagged the images as romantic, but to those who had followed their story closely, it looked less like affection and more like endurance. By the end of the night, even some event staff had reportedly stopped calling it chemistry. One producer allegedly whispered, "It was like watching two actors share a scene they no longer believed in." That line hit hard because it explained what everyone was feeling, but could not fully name. What had turned partnership into performance? What had turned two people who once looked united against the world into two figures standing side by side with a cold gap between them? To find that answer, you cannot start in New York. You cannot even start in California. You have to rewind to Paris, where insiders claim the crack first began to spread. Before New York became the public stage, Paris was the private trigger. It was supposed to be Meghan's comeback moment. Front row seats, couture gowns, luxury lights, and the kind of attention she knows how to command. But behind those flawless photographs, witnesses claimed they saw something different. Harry and Meghan were moving through the same space, but not with the same energy. He kept his distance, gaze fixed forward, while Meghan greeted designers and crowds with her signature smile. To the public, it was glamour. To those close enough to read the room, it felt icy. Then came the moment that reportedly changed everything. Meghan's team filmed her walking near the Pont de l'Alma tunnel, the place forever tied to Princess Diana's final tragedy. Meghan appeared with a faint smile, scarf drawn close around her, her expression soft but deliberate. When that clip surfaced online, it sparked outrage from critics, but inside their home, sources claim it triggered something even worse. According to people close to the couple, Harry was furious. Not loud, performative fury that explodes and fades. This was quieter, deeper, and more personal. To Harry, that tunnel was not a backdrop. It was not a symbol to be styled. It was sacred ground. For Meghan, some believed it may have been meant as artistic legacy, but to Harry, according to insiders, it felt like a line had been crossed. That night, the argument was reportedly brutal. Words were said that could not be easily taken back. Harry allegedly demanded to know how anything connected to his mother's final tragedy could be used for public imagery. Meghan reportedly insisted it was harmless, even symbolic. But insiders say something in Harry shifted right there. For years, he had fought the press, the palace, and public opinion to protect her. Now, for the first time, he seemed unable to defend the choice in his own mind. From that night forward, the silence between them grew louder. Harry stopped defending. Meghan stopped explaining. Their smiles became scripts. Their affection became choreography. Each appearance seemed rehearsed for the cameras. Each gesture designed to keep the illusion alive. The public saw outfits, applause, and expensive lighting. Insiders saw two people trying to keep a brand standing while the private warmth underneath was fading fast. By the time New York arrived, the performance may have been all they had left. The laughter looked mechanical, the eye contact looked forced, and the man standing beside Meghan did not seem angry anymore. He seemed hollow. That was the danger no one saw coming. Not rage, not scandal, emptiness. Because once love turns into survival, it does not always explode. It erodes, quietly and completely. What began in Paris did not end in New York. It simply became visible. Every story has a rhythm, and theirs started sounding like a heartbeat that kept skipping, uneven, fragile, and impossible to ignore. You could hear it in the pauses between smiles. You could feel it in the clipped sentences exchanged off camera. You could sense it in the silence that lingered just long enough to feel uncomfortable. This was no longer a fairy tale told in bright colours. It was painted in shadows, silver camera flashes, red carpet tension, and the low hum of a crowd waiting for something to snap. Every word they spoke in public sounded polished, rehearsed, and perfect. But every silence told the truth they seemed too afraid to say out loud. Their story had become half theatre, half confession, dramatic in its staging, controlled in its delivery, but threaded with the kind of quiet that makes people lean closer. Because what appeared to be collapsing between them was not loud. It was the kind of unravelling that happens under the breath, behind closed doors, between two people who know the script too well to admit they are lost inside it. Every movement felt deliberate. 3 beats of tension, 1 beat of calm. Every phrase seemed cut short, as if both were holding their breath, afraid to finish the thought. Harry's voice, when heard in those moments, seemed slow and clipped. Meghan's tone stayed steady, but strained. Together, they sounded like dialogue from a film already in its final act, and that was the secret pulse of their downfall. It was not chaos that defined them. It was precision, a perfect image built on controlled emotion, slipping out of sync frame by frame. The more you watch their story, the clearer it becomes. Every pause, every glance, every carefully chosen word seems to hide a truth more haunting than any rumour ever could. Somewhere between performance and confession, their silence speaks loudest of all. Maybe the smiles were real once. Maybe the laughter on those early red carpets was not rehearsed. Maybe there was a time when the closeness was not staged, and the hand-holding was not for the cameras. But somewhere between the spotlight and the silence, something shifted. The glances grew shorter, the touches became colder, and what began as rebellion against the crown appeared to turn into rebellion against each other. Every story has a final scene. Some end in noise, others end in nothing at all. For Harry and Meghan, insiders believe it may not come through a dramatic press statement or a public split. It may be the quiet kind of ending, the one that happens slowly and invisibly until one day they simply stop standing side by side. The cameras will move on, the headlines will fade, but the question will linger like an echo. Was this love ever meant to survive the fame it helped build? Because when affection becomes performance and loyalty becomes strategy, the fairy tale does not always shatter. Sometimes it dissolves, frame by frame, smile by smile. And in that silence between flashbulbs and reality, the truth waits unseen, unspoken, and unforgettable. What unfolded in New York was not just a moment, it was a mirror, a reflection of a pattern Meghan's critics say has appeared before. The slow fading of affection, the quiet shift from love to strategy, the charm, the performance, the unraveling that begins when the cameras turn away. One critic put it harshly, saying, "Isn't she very needy? She loves to be loved, and she hates the British people. She'll never come back to this country because she knows people don't really want her back in this country." It was a brutal line, and whether people agree with it or not, it captured the anger still surrounding her public image. And if you think this was the first time someone close to Meghan felt that fracture, think again. Because before there was a prince, there was a man who allegedly saw the pattern early. Joe Giuliano, described here as Meghan's first husband, the man who once promised her forever and walked away before the world ever knew her name, has now reportedly spoken out. And what he allegedly revealed about why his family rejected her paints a picture even more unsettling than the royal drama. His words do not just explain the distance seen on that red carpet. They point to a pattern critics believe has been repeating for years. If you want to understand why Harry's silence now looks so final, you need to hear from the man who lived through what some call the first version of Meghan's story. Watch our previous investigation. Meghan's first husband, Joe Giuliano, reveals why his family rejected Meghan. It is not just gossip, it is context, and it changes how some people see the beginning of this fairy tale. You are watching Star Spotlight, where secrets cast longer shadows than fame ever could. Like, comment, and subscribe for more royal drama, deeper context, and the stories behind the spotlight.